TLDR, Deepwater Horizon is a brilliantly directed, near flawlessly acted, emotionally resonant depiction of one of America's biggest environmental and humanitarian crises. I feel like that needs to get out of the way now before it starts getting all personal and contextual up in this bitch. I mean, come on, what can I say? Movies are art has themes can be personal, it happens. So if you're here for an unbiased review of Deepwater Horizon, you can just take that first sentence on its word and move right along to whatever monumentally important task I'm sure you put off to listen to some cynical prick talk about movies on the internet over a sequence of badly cropped stock photographs. As for the rest of us, let's get down and dirty with what makes Deepwater Horizon one of the best films I've seen all year. For those of you whose heads have been stuck in microwave ovens for the past 5 years, we'll start with a little recap. On April 20th, 2010, the Deepwater Horizon oil drilling rig caught fire and exploded about 40 miles off the coast of Louisiana. 11 people died and 17 more were wounded. After the explosion, the wellhead broke at the seafloor, and for the next 87 days, the destroyed portions of the rig leaked an estimated 4.9 million barrels of oil into the Gulf of Mexico. It remains to this day one of the worst oil spills in history, but for some people, it was a bit more than that. You see, at the time of the spill, I was living out my humble life in a shitty little town called Fairhope, Alabama, about half an hour from the Gulf of Mexico. People would stop by our city while traveling to the actual fun places, so whatever public revenue we didn't get for basically just being a giant retirement community came from tourism. Needless to say, when the beach is knee-deep in crude oil, people don't go swimming, so when the spill happened, it was less of a disaster and more of an apocalypse. Businesses lost money, people lost their jobs, people lost their homes, some people, including my father, were overworked and underpaid to clean up what ultimately amounted to somebody else's garbage. It was, to put it diplomatically, a fucking shit show. And who do you think people blamed for this? For once, it actually was not the US government. The people were too busy begging for FEMA money while simultaneously turning down accessible healthcare, but I suppose that's America for you. Anyways, the fault was given to well operators British Petroleum and Transocean. There was eventually a settlement, but it wasn't enough money because it never is. Therefore, I think I speak for most people when I say that the resentment, much like the oil, has not been fully washed away. And that, ladies and gentlemen, after 3 paragraphs of my boring life story, is the point. As much of an environmental disaster that the Deepwater Horizon spill was, and it was, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to devalue this whole thing. I mean, fuck, just look at some of these fucking pictures. It's awful. I wouldn't be showing them to you if I didn't expect to elicit some form of negative emotional response in regards to the environmental ramifications of the entire incident. Seriously, be sad, damn it. But the point I'm trying to make is that Deepwater Horizon was as much of a humanitarian disaster as it was an environmental one, and that's what the film gets so incredibly right. There is no beating around the bush, no fucking around with Deepwater Horizon. This movie has an antagonist, and it is explicitly BP. It is right there on their goddamn t-shirts. Now, I'm not a copyright expert, so I'm not totally sure what the terms are when it comes to the use of trademark logos like that, but I mean, it can't be that hard. Watch, I'll fucking do it right now. Woo! Anyways, Deepwater Horizon is a movie that knows exactly what it's doing, and it leaves no time for sugarcoating. BP fucked everything up, they know for a fact that they did, and they still pretty much got away with it. Within the first hour, Deepwater Horizon has said pretty much everything any of us wanted to say to BP. Behind the stellar motivated performances of Mark Wahlberg, Kurt Russell, and Dylan O'Brien, and the magnificent bastardry of John Malkovich, Deepwater Horizon projects its intents onto an audience it anticipates to have been softened by time, and it does so with an admirable amount of sheer audacity. Not once is it considered, even remotely, that the Deepwater Horizon was a natural accident. This may be the first such movie I've seen where the disaster is truly and inextricably our fault. And then things begin to explode. Now, I'll be honest, this is where I expected the movie to fall apart, to give way to the effects-driven spectacle and lose its footing amidst the chaos, and for me to be rendered furious by the disrespect shown to its own premise. However, by providing the audience with developed and interesting characters along with a well-defined, sufficiently explanatory setting, Deepwater Horizon proves that it's more than capable of making you give a shit what's exploding. Bay and Emmerich should take note because Peter Berg's expertly restrained action directing demonstrated how to really make a disaster movie, an experience made all the more visceral by the outstanding production and sound design. Thanks to the fantastic efforts on virtually all fronts, Deepwater Horizon was a powerful film. I was excited, saddened, enraged, and forced into reflective silence, all without ever feeling cheaply manipulated. I watched in reverence at the heroic deeds of the men and women on board the rig, and I stood in shock as the environmental tragedy unfolded subtly in the background. And as much as I'd love to leave it at that, I can't say that the film was perfect. The over-reliance on foreshadowing was incredibly obvious and became very cheesy after a while, and the child actors, well, they just fucking sucked. They fucking sucked. There's no way around that, unfortunately. Regardless, Deepwater Horizon finally made me excited to go back to the movie theater, and it's sure to be a gripping reminder that the horrible things in life shouldn't be forgotten, because in the long run, it's how we learn not to do them again. Check this one out. You won't regret it.